thank you, Edward. Thank you for deciding to meet with us. And I'm just really impressed by your work. Can you give me a little history on just how you started painting? Like,
Yes, I did my first oil painting when I was 11, as I remember, and then I was painting throughout from then on. But there came a time when I was in college, even earlier, that I had this struggle whether or not the Lord wanted me to do this or not. Early on, I thought I was a still life painter, and so I did still lifes. But I was trying to even then find a spiritual meaning for what they were. And then I finally discovered the figure, and in discovering the figure, it opened up a whole another world for me. And it was a show that I saw at the National Gallery dealing with Caravaggio and his influence over the next century. It was a beautiful show, and at first I didn't think it had anything to do with me, because I'm a still life painter. And but all of a sudden, these figures started taking over my canvas. Didn't know how the figure would be used in my work, but I knew that the Lord was leading me to something. And so my wife came over, and we had a lovely time in France. And the last night in Paris, we went to the Opera House, and we had tickets up in the nosebleed section. But of course, that's next to the Chagall ceiling, so that's not too bad. Mm-hmm. But I looked on the program, and what they were doing an evening of Balanchine. Balanchine had just died. He was the choreographer that worked with the Ballet Russe. And the Ballet Russe in the early part of the 20th century were using all the major artists to do sets and so forth. So you had Picasso doing Parade, and you had others, but then he had Rouault do the sets and costumes for The Prodigal Son. And that's what we were seeing, one of the pieces we were seeing that night. Wow. And it was a revelation. As I was studying, I thought, oh my goodness, Rouault, one of my favorite painters, and here's his sets. Here is the story of the prodigal son. And all of a sudden, as the prodigal son was crawling almost nude across the proscenium into the arms of the father, wow, I realized that it was the narrative that was the key for me. And that's how the figure needed to be used, and that's how I've been using it.
Can you tell us a little bit about your education and how
certainly.
From 11 to...
Well, I went to, of course, I have an undergraduate degree, and actually it was in I have several majors. Speech and drama was one of the majors. Mm-hmm. I have an art major. I have an art education. I also have an art education tacked onto that. And then I have a history minor. Wow. And so it was, and I actually ended up with a little bit of extras, graduating with my class. So, but I found that if I was taking a lot of classes, I did much better than having fewer classes. I would get lazy or something and not work as hard. But after that, I have gone and studied in Salzburg at the International Summer Academy of the Fine Arts, where I received the Prize of Salzburg in printmaking under Otto Itlau, who was a German from Berlin, a Berliner that was quite well known for his printmaking. Then another time earlier, I studied there in painting under Zhao Wuqi, who is he's a Chinese-French artist, has just died, and he several years ago, and he is one of the more important abstract expressionists of the 20th century. His prints are absolutely exquisite, and I didn't study printmaking with him, but I was studying painting. But and it was such a privilege to be able to have contact with this very kind and generous man.
So you studied under a lot of great artists.
Yes, those are the two probably most famous. Mm-hmm. Then there are others. You keep working and so forth. But I think that is a good way for young artists maybe to go find out who you would like to be with and see if you can do that. Apprenticeships. More than degrees. If you are going to teach, you need the degree. Mm-hmm. And I do have an MFA in painting, which I did at the University of Tennessee. And there I was working under actually they're called the Knoxville Seven now. It's a group of abstraction painters that were there. And I didn't realize I'd come into the middle of the whole thing, but there I was. Now that you're looking back at history, they've got a name and group and so forth. And so that was very, very helpful too.
Can you, how have people really interacted with your work, and what are some of the reactions, some of the stories in regards to just seeing your work?
Well, you have everything from a young woman who came to me when I was had a show at the University of Oklahoma, who told me that she said, I was reared in a good Christian home, but I've gotten away from all of that. She was a graduate student there. And she said, but I needed to tell you that since seeing your paintings, I have to rethink my Christian faith. And so, and then another time at the Union Station, when the large crucifixion, the 16-foot crucifixion was being shown, another man coming in and having to deal with that image. And in dealing with that image, my minister happened to be there. He came over and talked with him just briefly, and he said, I went to Catholic schools, and if we had pictures like this, it would have made a difference. It would have been different. And so I have everything from that, which are the high moments, to having a show in Tennessee where paintings were torn up.
Wow.
And then another time in Dallas, I showed at the Biblical Art Museum in Dallas one time, and there was no problem. Next time I showed there, everything broke loose, and you had a group of Christian artists that were meeting there that would not talk to me. They closed the show. The internet. You can find interesting things on the internet. Children were being given at some of the private schools extra credit or something for writing thank you notes to the curator for closing the show, and it was such a huge thing that the Dallas Morning News had to do an op-ed and so forth, because it really hit that large thing. But then the show moved up to, I think it's Denton, where the university is, one of the universities, and it was shown in the municipal gallery there, as well as a church in the sanctuary, and had 3 good reviews and all kinds of things there. And when I was taking it down from the church, the people said, can't we just leave it up here? Can't we just keep it?
Can you explain why you moved to do that, or just, is it?
I don't know exactly. I got into that many years ago, and I just liked the in-your-face quality of it.
Like a
boldness, and which comes from probably my love of German expressionism early on, where that was part of their thing, is they really wanted to be in your space kind of thing. And the large paintings allow for me to do that.
You've recently published,
Yes.
is a book.
Yes.
Can you tell us about Violent Grace, your book?
It is. It's called Violent Grace, a retrospective. It goes back over my somewhat chronological, but not entirely. And but people have asked for years, about are there reproductions of your work, and I don't like doing G-clay or that kind of thing. But here the people can kind of see, and there's several very good essays in it by important people, I think. This is the crucifixion.
Wow.
And so, and then this is the collector's edition that comes with this handmade box and an original painting that goes with the work. There is also a deluxe edition that is, if I can get it out, just a book with a slipcover, but with an original print.
Do you, can you give us some advice to artists that are, or even Christian artists entering the market?
Well, I would say that the main thing that a young Christian artist must decide is, does God want them to do this? And that is not determined necessarily by that they have an interest in it or anything else. It's a calling. And once that is decided, then everything else can grow from that. And but which brings me to say that my identity as an individual is not in what I do. It's not in the painting. Oh, he's an artist. Of course, that identity is there because I've been doing it so long, but personally, that's not my identity. My identity is in whose I am. I'm a child of God. I'm a friend of God. And because of his initiative, not mine, it's nothing I deserve, but it's the reality of my life. And that in that reality, then he's allowed me to do these things, and it's part of that. And then when I'm old and I'm decrepit and I can't paint anymore, I still have my personhood.